After the ridiculous popularity of Stranger Things Season 5, I got into a lot of discussions with friends about what is the D&D class of each Things character, and I've seen a lot of these discussions online as well. The most glaringly obvious is, of course, Will being a sorcerer. Spoiler alert, he's not. But you know, it got me thinking about all the rest of the gang and all the other characters in Stranger Things, so I decided to put together a list of all of them. So this is what we're going to do today. But for that, we need a system first, because there are a lot of editions of D&D. All of you know 5th edition, which is currently running. And even during the time of the show, well, I mean, when it plays, there were different types of games going all around. If you watch the seasons, in the first season, you can see them playing the 1983 basic box. And in the second season, they're playing from the blue box, the expert version of it. But then when Eddie Munson and the Hellfire Club begins, they're playing with first edition AD&D. But first edition AD&D is way too restrictive for me to put each and every character in the show. To classify each and every character from the show into all the AD&D classes, that didn't really work. Then I thought, well, most obviously I could use 5th edition, which is the most popular one, and then most of the people I know will understand. But that is just too far detached from what the kids were using, so I didn't really like that. Then I thought about using the 2nd edition AD&D, most specifically the one used in the original Baldur's Gate games. If you haven't played them, do so. They're really good, and they're the games I learned D&D from. But that didn't work either, and then I thought about using all 3 of them and just putting 3 class to every single character, but then I realized that is going to be very boring and tedious and long. So instead, I'm going to choose one class or subclass or kit or multiclass in some cases for each and every Stranger Things character, but from across all the D&D editions. So first off, let's start with the gang, the kids themselves. Mike, he was obviously the dungeon master of that group, but in season 2, he himself says that he is the paladin of the group, which Will later reinforces by saying that he's the heart and soul, the leader of their group. And I perfectly agree with that. Mike is definitely a paladin. The question for me was only that, which one? You know, there are a lot of different subclasses, different subtypes of paladin, but I think that Mike really embodies the base, the core tenets of the paladin. So at first I didn't really want to specialize him, but then I realized that there is one subclass or kit, it's a kit, one kit for the paladin that really doubles down the core idea of the medieval honorable knight, and that is the 2nd edition AD&D Cavalier kit. And while the Cavalier is well, it is also for mounted combat, which put me off a little bit at first, but then I realized that Mike's bike is Mike's mount. And really all the rest is just this true core paladin thing. I also like with Mike that in season 2, he becomes this sullen and angry kid, which of course is understandable because he thinks the love of his life is stuck in the Upside Down, and also he's becoming a teenager, and which of us wasn't an asshole at that age? But I kind of think about this as, you know, the trial of a paladin, if he can stay honorable or not, if he loses his class and becomes a fallen paladin or oathbreaker as we know them in 5th edition. But yep, Mike faced the test, faced his problems, and stayed true to his belief and stayed the heart and leader and soul of his group. So Mike is a 2nd edition AD&D Cavalier. Next up is Lucas. Now, Lucas, we can all agree, is the most athletic in the group, and also in season 2, where Mike lists off all the classes the group has, he lists him as a ranger. And even though he says at the end of the finale in season 5 that Lucas is a knight, I like the season 2 version much better. And I think the qualities that Lucas has that would make him a good knight would also make him a fine ranger. And again, as similar with Mike, I didn't really want to put him into any subclass because I really think that he is a ranger. If you think about it, in the first season, he was the scout of the group, being stealthy, walking around, with the headband of his and the binoculars. And yeah, he doesn't really have any magic abilities, which is why I chose the first edition, or first edition AD&D or OD&D Ranger, which didn't have any magical abilities until level 8, at which point they become a Ranger Knight, which again fits with the ending of season 5. Also, Lucas is, really athletic, but athletic not as in strong, but athletic as in being a good sportsman. So that means he has high strength, high dexterity, most likely high constitution, which again fits the ranger in his sword wielding and archery style. And also because in these editions, ranger needed to have very high attribute scores across the board. So again, I think it just all fits. Also, when I say ranger, I really don't think about them as the pet class or the one with animals. I mostly think about them as Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, which supposedly is what the Ranger class was modeled after. Someone who's good with the sword, good with the bow, very stealthy, and very knowledgeable about the ways of the world. If I have to pick between OD&D and first edition AD&D, Ranger didn't really change much, but let's stick to first edition AD&D because, as I said before, that is most likely what the kids were playing. Next up is Dustin Henderson. Now, I had a very strong core belief with him because back to season 2, when Mike lists all the classes of the kids, he calls Dustin the bard of the group. And I think it fits well enough, but not perfectly. First of all, the first question we face is which bard? Being a bard is not only about music, but even if it is, we all remember how he reached for the stars.
Reach the stars, fly a fantasy.
At first I was thinking about 5th edition College of Valor bard, because as the seasons progress, Dustin becomes a lot more extroverted and he faces danger up ahead and he just never balks. So that would have fit, but I thought about his progression. He started off as a College of Floor bard, trying to learn more and more about the world, gathering knowledge, also being an inspiration to the rest of his party. But then, after season 2, he went to camp, where he started to learn more, and then he realized he's going to use his knowledge in more practical ways. And he will pour all this knowledge into his inventions, making him an artificer and a battlesmith at that. Well, he does not have a steel defender, but I think the way he treated and loved Dart really proves that if he could, he would have a steel defender. So there you go. Dustin is a 5th edition College of Lore bard / battlesmith artificer. The 4th member of the party is, of course, Will the Wise. This may seem to be a cut and dry case, but hear me out first. So, of course, we all know him as Will the Wise, the mage or magic user or wizard or whatever you call him. And then, of course, in season 5, he becomes known as a sorcerer. And in season 2, again, when Mike lists off the classes of each party member, he lists Will as a cleric, which really doesn't fit him at all, I think. So we have mage, cleric, sorcerer, but of course, we all know none of them fit. We all know that Will is a warlock, but I didn't want to go so swiftly in that direction, so hear me out first. In first season, when Will gets abducted, he goes into the Upside Down and manages to avoid the Demogorgon for days. That is a very, very cool feat, which means Will is really good at stealth. He doesn't have any magic powers, so that will make him a rogue or a thief. And in 2nd edition AD&D, there was this option for human characters to dual class. So I think there is an option here for Will to start off as a thief, and then later on when he gets his powers, he would pick on the mage class, which was available there, making him a dual class thief mage. But as much as I like this idea, the way he gets his power and his connection with Vecna and the Mind Flayer obviously makes him a warlock. And since warlock came later and the whole multi-classing system of 5th edition is the one that allows this specific build, I think it makes him a low-level rogue, maybe a low-level thief, which multi-classes into a warlock through his pact. Well, pact not in the original sense of it, but pact as in a magical connection between him and a more powerful being. So yeah, thief. Will is a 5th edition thief / warlock multiclass character. Next up is 11, and while we know her as the mage of the group, everyone who knows D&D, we know that she's not a mage. She is the sorcerer. A sorcerer is someone who was born with magical powers. It's in their blood. And what can be more true to Elle than being a sorcerer? I mean, she literally was born with this. But just general sorcerer, I don't think that's good enough. So let's dive deeper. For that, we need to explore how she gets her abilities. I mean, who is she related to and what kind of power they wield? And I think for that, the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer is the one that fits the best. I mean, look at this. In Xanathar's guise, it says, an alien influence has wrapped its tendrils around your mind, giving you psionic power. You can touch other minds with that power and alter the world around you. So what else do you need? Like telepathy? Or being able to cast spells without vocal or somatic components? Maybe she can resist psychic attacks better than anyone else? Yeah, I think we can all agree Elle is definitely a 5th edition Aberrant Mind Sorcerer. The last one to join the group was Max, and of course in the series she's called a Zoomer. We're going to give her a proper D&D class. I was looking for something which gives her a lot of movement speed, true to a Zoomer. It wasn't easy, but eventually I found the variant rule for the Ranger class in 3.5, the Urban Ranger, which I think fits her really well because I really don't see her as a nature kind of person with her skateboard and everything. She's a city girl or suburban girl, but still an urban environment. I think she would also pick up a Scout class from 3.5 and multi-class into those two, which would give her super mobility and speed. And with these two classes, she wouldn't have the open lock skill, which she definitely used in Season 2. But I think in 3.5, it's pretty easy to get that through supplements or feats or maybe dipping into one level of rogue. Actually, I think this would be a pretty good build, but we're not here to that and we're not getting into the details of it. We're not going to build 3.5 characters because this video is not supposed to be 6 hours long. But yeah, she is 3.5 Urban Ranger / Scout. So with the gang done, let's move on to the young adults, as I would call them. First off on that list is going to be 8 because I didn't really know where to put her. So she's joining this group because she's a bit older than 11. So Kalik Prasad, I originally wanted her to be an illusionist, right? Because that makes a lot of sense. In the Hungarian TTRPG called Magus, there was actually an illusionist class which only specifically could operate with illusion magic, nothing else. And I think I kind of liked the idea, so I tried to find something similar across the D&D editions. But I couldn't really. I mean, there are specialist mages and spell school-based subclasses in AD&D and in 5th edition D&D, but those doesn't restrict her to use only illusion magic. And then I also realized that that's not all what she is. I mean, Kali was also a punk, a gang leader. So I wanted that to put into her character class as well, which led me to the 3rd edition Beguiler class. It's a roguelike class, which fits her roguelike gang leader character, but also can operate with magic, specifically almost only restricted to illusion and enchantment magic. And while she should also be a sorcerer like Elle, given her heritage, none of the sorcerer classes really fit her, so please forgive my liberty of choosing her this Beguiler class. 3rd edition Beguiler class it is for Kylie Prasad. Next up is one of my favorite characters, Nancy. Boy, she goes through a lot of change, so I immediately knew that she's not going to fit one class only. There are 2 aspects of her, I think. One is the investigator, the journalist kind, and the other is the Rambo character we've seen her become by season 5. So I think she started off as the first, being more of an investigator, and then turned into this monster hunter, slayer of all evil. Later on, she turned back into being an investigator, the journalist. So I think 5th edition would fit us better, where you can just, or 3rd edition could work as well, where you can pick the classes every time you level up. I decided to go with 5th edition, the Inquisitive Rogue, which fits her inquisitive nature. And then I wanted her to become a fighter, but then I realized that the Monster Slayer Ranger subclass fit more her vibe, given her preference of ranged weapons and, well, you know, slaying of monsters. So yeah, Nancy is 5th edition Inquisitive Rogue / Monster Slayer Ranger. For Jonathan, I was again thinking about using one of the Bard classes, as in he talks a lot to people and inspires them and supports them. But Bards are mostly into performative arts. They are really exhibitionist, extroverted people, which Jonathan is absolutely clearly not. So I started to look for something else and couldn't really find anything, but then I landed on the 2nd edition AD&D Stalker kit for Rangers, even if only for the name. But I think it kind of fits. He's not really a frontliner fighter, which Stalkers are not, because they could only wear subtle letter maximum. He's good into scouting the area and, you know, being a lookout with his camera. Maybe you could have an argument for Bard and make him a 5th edition Bard / something else, but I'm going to stick to my choice. Jonathan is a 2nd edition Stalker. Following Jonathan with Steve Harrington, he's Nemesis, and boy oh boy, I mean, this is kind of why I started this video. I was thinking about a class for Steve. You could argue for Paladin, but I'm pretty sure that is not him. Steve is a knight, as in one with no magical abilities or anything alike. He's just there, you know? Knight is a class that came in 3rd edition first and continued on in 4th edition. And we're mainly talking about the ideals, the vibe here. For Steve, we are going to go with 4th edition. Firstly, because I think if he were to choose an edition, 4th edition would be the one to fit Steve. He's not a nerd. He's not going to go into all the details of 3rd edition. He wants a plain-cut, action-oriented system that is 4th edition. Also, the 3rd edition Knight is very much a hold the line character, but the 4th edition has these auras called stances that are just, you know, buffing and protecting people all around you, which is exactly what Steve is doing. And also all the rest of the Knight idea fits him. Think about it. Noble born, noble characters, both by heritage and both in their souls. That is exactly what Steve is. He's the richest kid in Hawkins. Look at his BMW. He is a noble in this case. He's also protecting the weak and innocent and downtrodden in his shining armor. Think about it. We all know that every other character in the show was there in the story by necessity. But Steve, he just saw a couple of frightened kids attacked by the Demogorgon, and he said, "Not on my watch." So that's it, folks. Steve is absolutely a 4th edition Knight. Next up is Steve's partner, Robin. Robin, for me, it was pretty clear-cut. She is a jester. A jester was a kit in 2nd edition AD&D for bards, and the 3rd edition prestige class. Actually, the 3rd edition says jester's magic comes from their ability to find humor in even the grimmest situation. Even while the fierce battle rages around them, the jester finds reason to make merry. She doesn't have much combat ability, but she's always there to lighten the mood for all the other characters in whichever season she's in. I think that given that the description that I just read up was from 3rd edition, let's make her a 3rd edition jester. Last of our young adults is Billy. Oh boy, yeah, whether season 2 or season 3, Billy is a person who's just fueled by rage, making him a barbarian, and I think a berserker one at that. Now, after him being possessed, I think one could argue that he changed classes or multiclassed into something, a warlock or of some sort, but I think even that doesn't change the core of what Billy is, which is a 5th edition berserker barbarian. Now let's go back to the younger characters. We have 3 kids who are prominent in the series. First of them is Erica. Erica is a bit younger than the gang. She's really proficient in a lot of things. She's smart, she's agile, and very stealthy, making her a perfect rogue. Now, I could argue that she could be a thief, or maybe, given how vicious she is, she could be an assassin, which is exactly what she is in the Welcome to Hellfire Club box set. But I think given that she's still pretty young, she hasn't picked a subclass yet, and she has a lot of roads to discover ahead of her. So yeah, as of now, she's just a base 5th edition rogue. Another prominent kid is Holly, Mike and Nancy's sister. And boy, whew, she was one of the hardest to figure out after Jonathan. Mike says that her character in the show is Holly the heroic Clarke, but I really don't think she's quite there yet. Her main character arc is, conquering her fear and becoming brave, which is a really good character arc, but not a D&D class. And given that she's still really, really young, I think that Holly is a 0th level character. And yeah, who knows, when she grows up, maybe she will become Holly the Heroic, Cleric of Saloon, Goddess of the Moon, and patron of those lost in the dark. Yeah, I think that would fit her perfectly. But yeah, for now, she's a 0th level character. Maybe a cleric in training. Next up is Derek, and boy, unlike Holly, he knows where he's going. He is a bard in training with limited use inspiration, and he convinces the other kids to leave the military camp or Henry's house in one single spell, which is Vicious Mockery, of course. He's a 5th edition bard in training, and if you don't agree, you can suck my fat one! Moving on to the adults, we have Joyce to begin with. Not much of a fighter herself, and therefore was a little bit hard to categorize because almost all the editions of D&D are mainly about fighting. I think she does a pretty good job about uncovering everything around her, especially when she's motivated. I mean, come on, even Hopper says that she could be his partner. So at first, I was a little bit thinking about 2nd edition investigator kit, but she's not really a professional investigator, and I also wanted to give her a little bit of twist, which 2nd edition doesn't allow. So instead, I moved on to 5th edition, and we're again using the Inquisitive Rogue as a base, as we did with Nancy, but we're going to give her one level of Barbarian, which gives her fear resist and the ability to, chop off Vecna's head with an axe. Yeah, I think that fits her perfectly. Joyce is an Inquisitive Rogue with one single level of Barbarian. Next up from the adults is, of course, Jim Hopper. There was a lot of options for him. I mean, he's the most combative character from all the characters here, and there are just a lot of options. I was considering a lot of 3rd edition classes like the Justiciar, the Vigilante, But I think Hopper is really very well rounded. He has a lot of talent and could go in many different directions. He's very flexible, even when going to combat. In the end, I settle for a kind of bland choice, which is a 5th edition Battlemaster fighter, which gives him the ability to adapt to the situation of the battles. Also, 5th edition gives you backgrounds, and I think the Haunted one really meshes well with his backstory. Hopper is a 5th edition Battlemaster fighter with a Haunted one background. The last adult I'm giving the class to is Murray. And I was really puzzled by him at first, but then the answer just hit me in the face. He's just obviously a 5th edition mastermind rogue. If you need convincing, just look at his ability. I mean, at 3rd level, he's getting Master of Intrigue, which gives him proficiency in Disguise Kit, Forgery Kit, Gaming Set, in 2 languages, and allows him to mimic the speech patterns and accent of a creature. Plus, apparently, he managed to put together a pretty nifty smuggling ring between seasons 4 and 5, which would make him a perfect 5th edition mastermind rogue. Last off, we have a couple of characters who are not so prominent in the show, but I still wanted to include them. And I think since they're not main characters, we're going to make them NPCs. First off is Mr. Clarke. Is definitely some kind of a sage or scholar. I didn't really find him a 3rd edition NPC class which could have fit him better, but I don't know. I'm not really well versed in 3rd edition, to be honest, because I was playing with different systems. If you have any other ideas, please let me know in the comments below. But yeah, for me, he's just a regular sage with points in all the knowledge categories. Ted Wheeler is the next one. Yeah, I think there are 2 options I had before me. I think Ted Wheeler is either a regular commoner or a more specific one, the innkeeper, given that, you know, it's his house the kids are playing in. But the way he behaves and treats everyone else around him, he's definitely a background NPC commoner. 3rd is, of course, all our favorite, is Karen Wheeler. Karen reminded me of something very specific. Karen Wheeler is a town guard from the original Baldur's Gate games. You know, she's kind of an inconspicuous person. You don't really think anything of her. She's just there. But when she gets angry and hits you in the face, you know you're done for. The last one is, of course, Henry or Vecna, who is Vecna, the Archlich, or the Archmage, if we are talking about the human version of him. So yeah, I think it fits his story perfectly, his arc. He started off as the Archmage, the original spellcaster, and then as he got sent into the Abyss, he turned into a Lich, the Archlich, Vecna. Well, that's it. That's it, I think. Did I forget about anyone? You didn't think I would, did you? I left off Eddie on purpose because I wanted to give him some special treatment. At first, I thought about giving him some music-centered bard class, which would fit very well with, you know, Dustin also being a bard and him being his mentor. He could have been like 5th edition College of Glamour bard, which fits his metal music inclination very well. Or, I don't know, some specific 3rd edition class like the Seeker of Song prestige class. But then, given how he sacrificed himself for the rest of Hawkins, I decided to grant Eddie the title Dungeon Master, because every party needs one. That's it, guys. If I left someone out that you would like to hear, please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, please like and subscribe, and thank you for joining me tonight. See you in the next video. Cheers, and play nice.